Dear colleagues, I am pleased to present to you the intermediate results of my research and to comment in general on the scientific works published by me within the framework of the declared project. I want to apologize right away for my not very good English. I conduct research within the framework of the project in German. As a matter of fact, I will continue to conduct basic scientific research in Germany from September of this year based on the invitation of Graz University. Today, I will talk about several key points of my research, which are devoted to economic nationalism and national identity in Austria and Germany as factors of national and international security. The study of the impact of national identity in international economic relations has an interdisciplinary nature at the border of such scientific disciplines as political science, economics, history, and theory of international relations, and is focused on the importance of national identity as factor of the country's national and international security. Acute theoretical discussions testify to the relevance of this topic, especially in the context of geopolitical changes in the international arena. First of all, there is the problem of the impact of these changes on key geopolitical concepts such as state sovereignty, the geopolitical role of the country, its national strategy and security, the relationship of universal and national interests, etc. Therefore, a detailed analysis of the economic and business landscape, the search for new effective models of economic development and concepts for reforming the structural economic policy of the state, as well as forecasting possible changes in the economic climate and geopolitical order are extremely relevant. The main goal of the study is to identify the main aspects of national identity that should be taken into account when developing a new system of international relations and foreign policy. The impact of globalization processes on the realization of national interests and the formation of national geostrategy is also considered. Despite the development of globalization processes, the strengthening of interdependence of countries due to the aggravation of global problems, the growing importance of integration associations and their influence on the internal policy of states, national identity continues to play a decisive role in the formation and determination of the state's foreign policy and strategy. Therefore, the preservation and development of national identity, the protection of national interests, is the dominant basis for the formation of the national security system, which requires a deep analysis and consideration of the geopolitical factor and determines the geostrategy of the state on this basis. Geopolitical realities, which reflect the growing interdependence of all subjects of international relations, objectively increase the importance of the role of a universal factor in the geopolitical space. This forces states to develop rules of conduct in foreign policy that correspond to the current geopolitical situation. However, this circumstance does not mean neglecting or downplaying the role of the national interest or giving up the struggle for its realization. Without taking into account cultural and historical traditions and national values, the understanding of international relations cannot be complete. Historical experience and real practice convincingly demonstrate that a policy based on national interests contributes most to the country's successful development. In this sense, the implementation of national interests is an important task of domestic and foreign policy, aimed primarily at ensuring economic growth, prosperity of the state, and the welfare of its citizens, as well as an important tool for determining the country's foreign policy strategy, taking into account its economic and innovative potential, geopolitical position, and international economic relations. Economic nationalism has entered the world agenda in connection with global political, economic, and military challenges, as well as the liberalization of international economic relations, which causes the increasing interdependence of the countries of the world, the imbalance of national economies, and the loss of economic independence. The methods of stimulating their own economies, which were used by successful countries for decades covertly, began to be actively voiced. The global change of the world economic order is obvious, fast, and dangerous for today's leaders of technological development. Today, weak countries can copy the experience of successful ones until the moment when the capitalist economy does not introduce the most effective and aggressive protectionist measures. At the current stage of the development of international trade, the tools of hidden protectionism prevail in the arsenal of developed countries, which are implemented mainly by methods of domestic economic policy. The economic basis of hidden protectionism, in contrast to the traditional one, actually concerns not so much custom tariffs, although they are often used by the G20 countries, but internal taxes and fees, public procurement, requirements for the use of local components in the manufacture of final products, and others. Instead of custom tariffs, the most common are requirements for compliance with national standards, certain sanitary, hygienic, and environmental norms, that is, non-tariff protectionism. Economic nationalism provides an opportunity to defend economic sovereignty, to spread economic influence through exports, and involves strengthening internal control over the functioning of the economy, labor and capital markets, the introduction of tariffs and other restrictions. Trade protectionism, competitive devaluations, monetary expansion, tax incentives are the main tools of the so-called policy of destroying the neighbor. Traditionally, protectionism is interested not in the foreign market, but in the domestic one. This provides an opportunity to defend economic sovereignty, expand economic influence through exports, and increase the country's ability to effectively regulate to balance of payments without resorting to the help of international organizations. And here the position of the government is important, according to which the reduction of the deficit of the balance of payments is carried out at the expense of an increase in the share of domestically produced goods in the consumer basket of the population, and not at the expense of a decrease in the volume of imported goods as a whole as a result of artificial organized by the government, washing out the monetary mass and the impoverishment of the population. Stimulating domestic demand by creating conditions for the development of the domestic market will indirectly stimulate the attraction of long-term investment resources in the country. For the Ukrainian economy, it's possible to single out the double impact of global economic trends. On the one hand, global trends of protectionism growth will hinder the promotion of nationally produced goods both on the domestic market and on the foreign market. In addition, acting as a weak economy due to military challenges, Ukraine will not have the opportunity to choose directions and forms of financing, becoming hostage to the ambitions of investors. Competing countries will limit the flow of credit resources that are not related to the promotion of their own economic interests. On the other hand, the centuries-tested methods of economic realism or economic nationalism can now be applied openly. It's necessary to form priorities to describe the mechanism of visible stimulating and restrictive measures as well as hidden instruments because economic globalization has not eliminated economic nationalism, but only changed the methods used to achieve economic power, technological leadership, or the welfare of the nation. The practical significance of the research results is that the theoretical provisions, conclusions, and recommendations are of great importance for the scientific substantiation of the optimal mechanism for the implementation of the national economic strategy, taking into account the national idea and identity in modern socio-political conditions. The skill of practical application of these results in the educational process, a justification of special measures of state authorities to solve the problems of economic development of Ukraine, as well as in the development and improvement of some legislative acts of Ukraine, is very important. In conclusion, I would like to thank you once again for your support of my scientific research, in particular my project on the question of the national identity of Austria and Germany as a factor of national and international security. I will continue research in this scientific direction in Germany. Such scientific scholarship, grants and awards support Ukrainian scientists in this difficult, stressful time and inspire future scientific research. Thank you for your support, for appreciating my scientific achievements, and thank you for everything you do. Thank you for your attention.